If you're in business or you work for a business, which is pretty much anybody, and you personally dislike sales or selling, if you just feel like sales is scuzzy and I don't want to be associated with that, this episode is for you. And even if you love sales and are good at it, chances are that your team members, if you own a location or a business and everyone should be in sales, chances are your staff doesn't want to be. And they are costing you take-home profit, significant take-home profit with some of the limiting beliefs that they may have, or even you may have. So I want to share with you the root cause and not only how to fix that process, but also the mindset that sabotages most people. But before we jump into it, just a quick reminder that if you are a fitness, recovery, or wellness brick and mortar business owner, and you need help generating leads, more high quality leads, and nurturing those leads so they come through your front door, and even some sales frameworks and coaching and training that we'll talk about today to close more prospects, then just go to ThriveMore Autopilot at thrivemore.ai. That's thrivemore.ai. ThriveMore Autopilot offers laser-focused advertising with our digital agency, in addition to a separate division that works leads and is going to nurture those leads through software, artificial intelligence, and even human beings that we have calling those leads so that they show up. And then just as importantly, and some of the stuff we'll talk about today, is a sales training and a sales course and support and group coaching calls and individual coaching calls that help people in sales who don't like sales. So, which is probably the majority of a lot of the people in fitness, wellness, or recovery studios. So check out ThriveMore AI to learn more, schedule a short intro call, and they can show you how you can grow your business with a lot less stress and frustration. Just put your business on ThriveMore Autopilot. So the average small to mid-sized business will rarely scale because one person, usually the owner, is the person who can land new business. And whether you're selling low-ticket memberships or high-ticket packages or products, your team must be able to close deals so that you can scale and grow. A business owner only has 3 levers to pull for his or her firm to grow, to expand. You can get more customers. You can get current customers to spend more, which may involve price increases. That depends. And you can keep a customer for a longer period of time so they do spend more money with you over a longer period of time. That's it. Those are the 3 levers. That's the only way you can really grow revenue. And if your first thought is, well, wait, hey, what about this or that or those things that grow revenue? I guarantee it fits within one of those 3 buckets I described. Just you may be looking at it a different way, but those are the 3 levers. So the number one way to grow and rip cash out of your business for you is take-home profit. Well, it's to add more new customers. That's the number one way to do it. But that can be the most challenging for most small and mid-sized business owners. And it usually is not attracting more prospects, although that can be a challenge for some. It's closing the prospects on a deal, on your service or your product. And after 33 years of professional experience, including leading sales teams as large as 500, scaling businesses to 60 plus locations, brick and mortar businesses, I can tell you that the inability to sell and certainly the desire not to sell comes down to 6 core issues that are all able to be addressed and fixed. And when addressed, sales will start to happen at an unprecedented rate. I've seen it across thousands of people, tens of thousands of times. So let's get into it. The number one reason you or your staff are not closing deals has nothing to do with overcoming an objection or qualifying or quality of the leads or any of that. It has everything to do with limiting beliefs and mindset. Too many people feel sales is a scammy, yucky profession. It can be, but that's because there are people in this world who are scammy and yucky, not because sales is that way. It's because some human beings are that way. There are bad doctors, lawyers, bad accountants, bad teachers, and yes, bad salespeople. But there are also great ones in all of those professions, including sales. Yet for some reason, sales is a dirty word for so many people in business today. It's not something people want to share at a cocktail party. Well, that's too bad because salespeople make the majority of money in most businesses. They are usually the highest earners and they contribute and they're the most valuable to that business. Confidence closes deals. And if you have a limiting belief around sales, whether not wanting to be associated with it or you don't like the process or that, then by definition, you don't have confidence to close deals. This comes down to, people fearing rejection and wanting to avoid being seen as a salesperson. So they do everything in their power to almost, I would say, self-sabotage, if you will, a sales call. And this is all happening between a person's ears because it's their self-limiting beliefs. It's not reality. It's not reality. Like, we all live in the matrix, right? We're all living in the matrix of our own head. And these limiting beliefs are, if you were the listener struggling with this, it's your own head trash, so to speak, that we need to work through. Sales equals help. Once a salesperson has this epiphany, everything changes. Deals start to be closed, and the stress level goes down significantly because you're not worried about rejection, because you're trying to help somebody. And people that are being helped usually don't reject the person trying to help them. And when a salesperson starts to believe this, to serve his or her prospects instead of trying to sell them, magical things start to happen. But you have to believe that sales equals help. So how do you get past these limiting beliefs that are holding you back and preventing you from earning more money or your business from growing? Well, you examine your beliefs by writing out the limiting belief and then right next to it. So just take a plain piece of paper, write out your limiting belief. And then right next to it, write the empowering belief, because you certainly currently you could have a limiting belief. So let's correspondingly write the empowering belief to the right of that. And then once you stare down at that paper and you see what belief you did have versus the one that you can choose to believe, because this is all choice, the limiting belief loses its power. For instance, maybe you believe sales is pushy and manipulative. Well, that will certainly limit your desire to want to sell. But what if instead you wrote next to that? So if you wrote that down, that's one of your limiting beliefs. You wrote next to that, sales is a service to my fellow man or woman. I am helping people solve their problem by offering a solution that is my product or service. Well, sign me up for that. That's a very different approach and mindset to have. And so when you do that for every limiting belief you have and counteract it with an empowering belief, and then you stare at it and you see how unfounded and even silly some of our limiting beliefs are, life starts to change. And yes, this exercise is just as effective in other areas of your life and relationships as it is with sales. It's a very powerful exercise. So I challenge you to do that. Take 10 minutes and write down your limiting beliefs around sales and how you feel about sales. And then write the empowering belief, the belief that would help you be more successful and help more people and grow your business or the business in which you work. The second reason that holds salespeople back is really a lack of understanding of the buyer's journey. When the prospect doesn't do everything we want him or her to do, we think, well, these leads suck. These leads aren't qualified. Well, that's not the case. When you truly understand the buyer's journey, because it is critical to be successful in sales, when you truly understand that, there's a much easier, you'll have a much easier feeling in engaging with that prospect and starting to ask great questions. Because right now there's a massive, massive, massive trust recession in the world, in our country, in almost all areas of life. There's too many crooked politicians. There's, on both sides of the aisle, there's too many fake news stories from all the networks, and there's too much BS on social media. And yet, when we embrace the fact that there is a trust recession and understand that the prospects don't, and quite frankly, shouldn't trust us yet until we earn it, things will go smoother. You start to build, you start to work in an authentic way to build trust. And right before your eyes, you'll see the prospect kind of let their guard down. Their wall of resistance starts to come down. And it's a process and it cannot be rushed. But there are frameworks that can really expedite building that trust. And, we can talk about that in another podcast. This leads to our third really issue that stops salespeople from being great and closing deals. The average salesperson, meaning not the not very effective one. Well, the average salesperson focuses on the words to say. They want to memorize scripts. They want to focus on what they say. While the expert salesperson focuses on the questions to ask. Words build resistance and can erode trust, where questions lower resistance and build trust. So if you just start talking to a prospect without getting to know what their real needs are, what they're really trying to accomplish, where their pain points are, you erode trust and you build resistance. Flip that and start asking good questions, deep questions, good follow-up questions with some active listening, and trust goes up and the resistance comes down. I could speak for like an hour on this one topic alone, but it does come down to changing behavior. Full stop. It comes down to changing behavior. When a salesperson gets out of his or her own way and starts to ask good, deep, and real questions, and then actively listen to the answers before formulating, the next question, deals start to close at a pretty rapid rate. I would say that 95% or more of all salespeople are not even listening to the answer that a prospect shares. The salesperson is too busy thinking about what they're going to say next. That kills rapport and it smashes trust. But when a salesperson asks a great question, listens, allows the prospect to finish, and then calmly asks the next logical and deeper question based on the answer that was just given, mountains start to move. And if asking great questions is the key to unlocking the door to more sales, then speaking about your product or service only in a way that can help alleviate a pain point for the prospect or get the prospect to a new level of success. Well, if asking great questions is the key to that, then the fulcrum with which to open the door is putting your features of your product or service as benefits to their specific pain point. I'm not talking about the features. You never talk about your features. You talk about the benefits to them. So when we start talking specifically about, how our features specifically address the prospect's pain, and we start to focus on how it helps them increase their revenue, their status, or even change their identity, whether it's a business to business sale or a business to consumer sale. When that all comes together, that is when the credit card comes out or the purchase order is cut. Because nobody cares that your business does XYZ. They don't care about my businesses that do XYZ. All they care is that XYZ can fix problems A, B, C. And honestly, they don't even care about XYZ. They just say, can you fix my problems A, B, and C? So just talk about A, B, and C and how those issues will be a thing of the past when the prospect does business with you. A business partner of mine once said to me, the two most important days in a man's life or a woman's life are the day he is born and then the day he finds out nobody gives a shit. That always makes me laugh because, of course, we've heard, the day he finds out the reason why. But it makes me laugh because, in fact, nobody does care. They don't care. And they certainly don't care about the business, your business. What they care about is that they're the hero in their story. Our prospect is the hero. We're just the guide. We're helping them. Sales equals help. They are the hero. If you position your client as the hero and your product is just the guide that gets them there, your service is the guide that gets them to where they're going, you will start to land more deals. So the number 5, the 5th major obstacle, I would say, holding back the average salesperson from becoming a sales pro who's looked at with respect and accolades is tonality. Monotone may be good for like white noise to sleep or something, but in sales, a monotone delivery is going to kill the deal. Too many salespeople sound bored when they're presenting because they're so rehearsed and canned, and they're just trying to get the words out. They're focused on the words, not the questions. And the prospect feels it. So instead, we want to focus on how we say things instead of what we say. And again, we've all read that only 7% of communication is what is said, and almost 60% is how it is said, which means tonality, pauses, and the use of silence is mission critical. And this doesn't mean that you have to be overly enthusiastic when selling. That is a misnomer. A downplayed, curious tone will take you much further than a hyper and fast-paced delivery, no matter how positive you are. Because when we are curious and we speak in a conversational tone, it sets the prospect at ease and it builds trust. But yet the majority of salespeople try to memorize a script and they speak, in this either very super professional tone or they speak way too fast, and certainly they can be monotone. Why not have a real conversation and get deeply curious about how, and even if, you can help the prospect? Something as simple as, Mrs. Jones, and here's an example, something as simple as saying, Mrs. Jones, if she answers the question, Mrs. Jones, that is interesting. Tell me more, right? Versus, Mrs. Jones, that is interesting. Tell me more. Well, she is going to feel more compelled to go deeper and share more with you using the inflection and the tonality of the second statement. And they're very similar, same words. But which one do you think will elicit a deeper and more open response from the prospect? Same words, different tonality, not fake acting, but genuine curiosity that shows that you're really interested in the prospect. Try that in your next sales meeting, just varying your tone, pausing, and using silence. And then lastly, if we had to, bring this down to like just 6 core issues, and by no means is this the last thing when it comes to sales, because sales is human psychology at its best. And like golf, like chess, you can never really master it. You can only get incrementally better each day. And the way to get better is to practice. So the 6th thing that holds people back is they don't practice, and they certainly don't practice daily. And why is it that we expect a professional athlete or musician to practice, but in sales, we assume that if you read a book, you took a course, years ago, you're good to go? Nothing could be further from the truth. The only way to get better at closing deals is to practice when it doesn't count. That means role-playing with a colleague or your supervisor every day. Not for like 3 hours, but for 15 minutes a day. Like, just invest in yourself. I'm a 55-year-old CEO, and I still role-play scenarios and the verbiage I want to use with my team members to ensure that I get it right when it counts. So if you don't feel comfortable role-playing, you don't need to. But just know you won't get any better at selling, and your closing rate won't improve. Just like a basketball player suffering from missing free throws, right? That basketball player needs to go practice and shoot 1,000 shots from the line to be ready for the game. Well, the same is true in sales. We must practice asking great questions, and then practice asking deeper questions with a prospect that logically makes sense. We must position our features as benefits for the prospect and talk about them as the hero and their business as the hero, and how we're going to get them out of pain or improve their situation. We even have to ask how we practice for payment, right? That needs to just flow. It just needs to flow. No big gulp like, so how do you want to pay? We don't want to do it that way. We want to practice. Hey, most people, most clients pay using Visa, MasterCard, American Express, or they ACH the funds. Which one works best for you today? Just very confident in the way we're asking for money. And again, even that statement, most clients pay, and then by blah, 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 blah. What you just said is most clients pay. They're going to hear that. People like to hear what other people are doing, and most clients pay. And practice is really what's going to separate the people that make all the money from the average low performer. But if you put in the work, the proceeds are going to follow. You will benefit from this. But you have to knock out those or get past those 6 areas. And there are many nuances to selling, depending on your industry, but the fundamentals are the same. You get these 6 things right, and the nuances start to come. I will share with you, if you're in the fitness or wellness space and you need some help with this, go to our sponsor's website, ThriveMore.ai, and check out their sales training and coaching program that is built specifically for brick and mortar business owners who want their staff, not only themselves, but their staff, to be better at closing and point of sale. It's a thing they put together just for brick and mortar fitness, wellness, and health business owners. So I hope this episode spurred thought. It made you a tad uncomfortable even when you challenge your own thinking and your own limiting beliefs, because in the end, that will motivate you, I hope, to change the way you think about sales and selling, and change behavior that previously may have held you back from making as much money as possible, as much as you deserve, and more importantly, helping the most prospects solve their problems. Good luck, good selling. Thank you for tuning in to the ThriveMore podcast. Don't forget to take a look at the show notes for any of the resources that we mentioned during the podcast. And if you haven't already, Be sure to hit the subscribe button and turn on your notifications so you have access to the latest and the greatest. You can connect with me on any of the socials at Real Roger Martin. And be sure to check out our website, ThriveMoreBrands.com. There you'll find information on the brands we support and information on franchising. Thanks again for tuning in.